All right. Shalom. It's the brother Azariah back again with another lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shai by Hashem, Rakah Kadash. Double honors unto the elders, apostles, bishops of the great millstone. Peace and blessings, sincere shalom to the brothers out there proclaiming his gospel to the four corners of the earth in righteousness and sincerity. Also to the few sincere Akwad, the sisters that believe upon this truth as well. Listening and learning to you, I say shalom. So we back in the news with this. Denzel Washington's casting as Hannibal in Netflix film sparks race controversy in Tunisia. And this just goes to show you how deep the rabbit hole goes when it comes to the deception that has been permeated throughout this earth. The so-called white man, Esau Edom, has completely whitewashed history. And the fact that you have Denzel Washington, a so-called black man, playing another historical black man is crazy that people are outraged about that, because this is historically accurate, right? But when you look at it, there was no outrage when Russell Crowe played Noah in Noah's Ark, right? There was no outrage when The Passion of the Christ came out and there was a white man playing the character of Jesus Christ. There was no outrage with how many movies have they made about Moses in ancient Egypt. The Israelites, all the Israelites were white. Moses was a so-called white man. Pharaoh was white, even though historically there's plenty of archaeological evidence to prove, to show and prove that the ancient Egyptians were not so-called white people. Okay, it's all on the walls. It's all on the papyrus and the manuscripts. These things exist, but yet, as the old saying goes, history is written by the victors. So when Esau Edom came in and he went around the four corners of the earth, he destroyed cultures. He appropriated cultures unto himself, so that now he calls himself the European. He calls himself the North African. He calls himself the Roman and Greeks, when in fact you're none of that. Now he calls himself Americans, which the real Americans, which we know that term American, that comes from a so-called white man, Amerigo Vespucci. But the original peoples of the so-called Americas were melanated, dark-skinned people, what people would refer today as Native Americans. That's who was here. But the colonizers came over, removed people from their lands, removed the landmarks, changed their culture, appropriated the culture, and pushed the real people to the back burner. This is what has been done all around the four corners of the earth. And you have a lot of people that are in outrage, that are up in arms that Denzel is playing the character of Hannibal Barca, because people believe Hannibal to be a so-called white man. And we'll get into the reason why they believe that, because it's a very racist ideology behind that, which has been pushed by the powers that be to undermine Jake, to undermine the accomplishments of so-called black people, right? So we'll get into the article. It says here, a decision to cast black actor Denzel Washington as the ancient Carthaginian general Hannibal in an upcoming Netflix film has sparked a small but heated debate in Tunisia. Now, why is there a heated debate going on in Tunisia over the true color of Hannibal, when there's very, very clear historical evidence, archaeology to prove, in fact, that Hannibal Barca was in fact a so-called black man? The evidence is there. But reading on, a small but heated debate in Tunisia, the military general's birthplace, after a similar controversy on race and representation in nearby Egypt over a Netflix docudrama about Cleopatra. Tunisian newspapers, social media, and even the halls of parliament have seen discussion on the skin tone of the long dead leader. And this is really madness, because why? For I'll just put it like this: for the longest time, no one questioned the true color of the Messiah. No one questioned the true color of Jesus Christ or the Israelites or Moses or Noah or any historical figure in the Bible that you want to talk about. No one was up in arms when they were white people. But now that the Lord has put the spirit on particular people to bring forth the true images, right? Just like the movie that Jay-Z co-produced. The one, I can't believe it's slipping my mind right now. Oh, what is the name of that movie, man? I can't remember the name right now, but one of you brothers or sisters, if y'all know, y'all can drop it in the comments section. But you know what I'm talking about. The one with Lakeith Stanfield, and where they actually depicted the true imagery, the true aesthetic of the real Israelites, okay, which were at the time in the land that the Romans were ruling, 70 AD, were so-called Negroes, okay? But for the longest time, it's always been the standard belief that no, the Israelites are white people. The Israelites are the JOOs that are in the land today, when that's not the case. All right, which I don't want to get off topic. That's another conversation. But the point is, history has been whitewashed by the Edomite. Okay, so now there's people in uproars. They're this. Hold on, let me read this. Hannibal, born in Carthage near modern-day Tunis, is considered by many to be one of history's greatest military leaders. And we can just stop right there, because the fact that he was considered one of history's greatest military leaders, and you'll have a lot of scholars say that he was even more brilliant than Julius Caesar, okay, which was in Roman Edomite, okay? He was greater than Caesar. So the fact that this is one of the greatest military leaders in history, there's no way possible that he could be a black man, because black people have never done anything great. You see, so-called Negroes have never done anything great. They've always been living in mud huts, and the so-called white man came and saved so-called black people from out the jungle. You swinging on vines, you was eating dirt. You ain't have no language, you ain't have no culture, you ain't have nothing. You know what I'm saying? You were just savages, basically. This is the belief that permeates throughout the Western world. But the point is, the fact that he was one of the greatest military leaders, he can't be black. So therefore, there's a controversy about it. During the war against the Romans in 218 BC, he led his troops and African war elephants across a high pass in the Alps to strike at Rome from the north. And that's the only time that's ever been done in history, okay, for an army to cross the Alpine mountains, right? For 15 years, he ravaged the land and people, but he never managed to take Rome, and was eventually forced back to North Africa. Hannibal's skin color is not known. So here we go again. They're saying Hannibal's skin color was not known, but this is a true historical figure, right? Hannibal fought against the Romans, so we know what color skin that the Romans had, but we don't know what color Hannibal was. So this is nothing but hypocrisy and just straight up wickedness, man. Like, anytime it comes to the accomplishments of Negroes, the Israelites, it's always a debate. It's always a debate. No, it can't. He can't be, a dark skinned black man. No, it's impossible. And this really it shows you how much that the heathen, okay, especially the Edomites, hate the Israelites, man, because they can't see you as anything great. You've always been on the bottom to them. You see? But they said that his skin color is not known, which is a flat out lie. Historians of the ancient Mediterranean world largely agree that he was of Phoenician descent. So then they go on to say that he was of Phoenician descent. Well, what color were the Phoenicians? Were the Phoenicians white people, or were they dark melanated people? What color were they? If he is a Phoenician, which we know that the ancient Phoenicians, they were a dark skinned people, okay, because they were Hamites. Okay, the Phoenicians descend from Ham, a region encompassing modern Lebanon and Syria, although he lived during a time of great empires and intermixing, which again, this is before, okay, because you had when Alexander of Macedon, when he died, he split his kingdom between his four generals. And in Africa, you had Ptolemy, you had the Ptolemaic dynasty that ruled over Egypt for a time. Now that's when white people started to come into Egypt. But when they show you the movies of Joseph being in Egypt and the Israelites and the Egyptians mingling, they show you all white people when there were no white people in Egypt before the Ptolemaic dynasty, which was I believe about what around the 300s or the 200s BC, around that time. But that was fairly a new recent thing at that time. But they're saying that this was at a time of great intermixing, which was simply not true. Okay. The issue of race has been brought to the fore in Tunisia recently by the flow of sub-Saharan migrants into the country. President Kais Saied was accused of making an imaginary enemy in February when he alleged without evidence that migrants were part of a wider campaign to make majority Arab Tunisia purely African. And the so-called continent of Africa, them Arabs, they don't belong over there. They came in and they conquered North Africa at the time of the Muslim conquest. That's when they got up in there. And even when Ptolemy was up in Egypt, they wasn't in the whole of Africa. They were only in Egypt. And by the way, they were the minority when they were there. They were the ruling class, right? The common people, they were all dark skinned. But now they'll tell you, oh, that all this intermixing was going on, which again, that's simply a bold-faced lie. But the fact that people have a problem with Denzel playing Hannibal, this is the further whitewashing of history. Now let's look at where Carthage was in the ancient world. Okay, so you have Rome here in Western Europe and in Italy. Okay, then you have Carthage, which is at the tip of North Africa on the Mediterranean Sea, and you have a thing called the Punic Wars, which was between Rome and Carthage. Mind you, Rome did eventually conquer Carthage, but before they conquered Carthage, there wasn't no white people that was up in Carthage. Okay, these were dark-skinned, melanated people that were here, and Hannibal was one of them. So when they say, "Oh, we don't know the skin color," they know the skin color that Hannibal was, because they have coinage as well, and we'll get to that. But and really, it's funny that when these Edomites want to speak on how people looked in certain geographical areas, they'll tell you, oh, anyone from Europe, they were white people, right? As if Europe was always white, which that was never the case. All right, that's a fairly recent thing, but for majority of history, Europe was populated by indigenous, dark-skinned, melanated people, just as the whole of the earth was before the Edomite spread his seed throughout the earth. But they'll tell you, oh, anyone from Africa, they were black. You know, anyone from Europe, they was white. Anyone from the so-called Middle East, they're, as they would say, olive complexion, right? But when it comes to Carthage, even though Carthage is in Africa, oh well, he wasn't white. Salakia, he wasn't black. But everywhere else, though, If he would have came from Europe, they would have been like, oh yeah, well he was definitely white, right? If he came from the Middle East, they would have been like, yeah, he's definitely olive complexion, or he was an Arab. But even though clearly Carthage is in Africa, there is no way that Hannibal could be a so-called black man. So again, just blatant hypocrisy and just straight up wickedness from the powers that be, Esau. Now this is the coinage here, okay, from the times. Notice how clearly this is a so-called Negro. Okay, this is a so-called black man, and of course he was famous. Hannibal was famous for his coinage. Okay, not the coinage, but the elephants. Okay, because he had war elephants, right? So you see the heads up depiction here. You can see the full lips. Okay, you can see the hair. Okay, you can see the features and clearly tell that this is a so-called Negro. All right, same thing on the bottom. This is another one. I saw a Carthaginian coin once that depicted Hannibal as having black African features. But this is what the historians will not acknowledge. Okay, they will see the evidence. They know the truth, but because he's not European, nothing good can be attributed to what he did. Okay, and once again, Hannibal is considered one of the greatest military commanders in history. Now, check out this coin, right? This is how you see that history has been whitewashed, okay? Because after Rome conquered Carthage, they started to put themselves on the coins. Notice this, okay? This is from pre Roman conquest, right? And this is what they did after. So you see, you can clearly see the two contrasts here. Hannibal, this is how he looked, all right. But then after Rome conquered Carthage, this is what they did. So they put themselves in the place of the original Carthaginians, which were so-called Negroes, and they put themselves in that state. So this is why people have a problem with the true depiction, because history has been whitewashed. History has been hidden. And as it says in 2nd Ezra 6:28, as for faith, it shall flourish, corruption shall be overcome, and the truth, which had been so long without fruit, shall be declared. So in these last days, the truth is finally coming to light. Okay, because these devils, they were not great, man. Okay, and they want to take on everybody else's culture except their own, which their culture is that of being cave dwellers. Okay, but you can clearly see that history has been manipulated. History has been glossed over by the victors. You see. So, but this is not just the only incidents where this was done. This has been done all over the earth. Okay, another prime example, how they like to say, "Oh, Europe was always white." Okay, that Europe was full of white people. It's always been that way. Well, that's actually a lie, because some years ago, you see here, DNA shows early Britain had dark skin, and this also goes against the notion that, how Esau teach that, as people migrated out of Africa and they moved north, that their skin became lighter. Well, that's a lie. Okay, because you have people that live in Greenland and that live in the northernmost fringes of Canada, up in the Arctic Circle, that have dark skin. They're called the Inuit people. Okay, they have dark skin and they live far north from the equator. So that whole migration and skin color theory, that's all BS. Okay, really what these Edomites have is the curse of Cain, which is leprosy. Okay, that's why they're the only nation upon the earth that have no melanin. Notice that every other nation upon the earth has melanin except the so-called European. But you can clearly see here that the scientists, okay, through DNA and taking certain things, that this is what the original inhabitants of Europe looked like. So we'll watch a little bit of this and we'll get into some other things I have as well.
This is what people looked like in Western Europe and Britain 10,000 years ago.
Heard what he said? This is what people look like in Western Europe and Britain. He said 10,000 years, but it was really not even that long ago. Okay, 2,500 years ago, 2,000 years ago, this is what Europe looked like until Esau, Edom came in, pushed these people out. Okay, because these are the sons of Japheth. Okay, these are Japhites. Okay, they are the original inhabitants of Europe. All right, and the islands. Okay, but when Esau came in through the conquest of Julius Caesar, he started conquering the indigenous people of that land, and he pushed them out. The sons of Japheth, they in the ancient world they were known as great sailors. Okay, they were known as great sailors. They were known for their sailing vessels. So when Esau Edom came in, they were fleeing persecution. They ended up fleeing to the Hawaiian Islands. What they call it, Polynesia. Tonga, Samoa. That's where they went to. Some of them went to Australia. Some of them went to New Zealand. So they were dispersed out of their land. But these are the original Europeans. Let's continue.
Not what we would have expected.
1, 2, 3, come on!
In museums, reconstructions, they look a bit like this guy has a spark to him as well.
I'm Chris Stringer, and I'm a research leader in human origins at the Natural History Museum in London. And I'm holding here this wonderful reconstructed head of Cheddar Man. And I've been studying the skeleton of Cheddar Man for some 40 years or so. And now with DNA technology, we've got the whole genome of Cheddar Man. And here we've got a scientific reconstruction of what he looked like. We've got his hair form, his skin, his blue eyes, and that dark skin colour, that combination really striking. And getting out of here information about his biology, the fact that, for example, he couldn't digest milk because that came in with the advent of farming after the time of Cheddar Man. So we're getting his whole biology, how he relates to people in Europe at the time, and how he relates to people in Britain now.
So like the point I just made, okay, history has been whitewashed by the Edomite. They have removed the landmarks. They have taken people's culture and identity. Now they themselves today call themselves the Europeans when this is actually the original European. And like I mentioned earlier, through the conquest of Julius Caesar, that's really when they got up in Western Europe heavy and started to, spread themselves, spread their seed throughout that land. Okay. And, that was known as the Gallic Wars, which happened from about 58 to 50 BCE. All right. So during that time, Esau was all up in Europe. All right. You also have, these as well. Okay. These are original Europeans. These are the descendants of Japheth. Now, when you see images like this, clearly you can tell these people have dark skin. All right. Now, in this particular painting, they would often do this. They would have the men regular, dark skin color. But then the women, they would make their skin pale to differentiate between the men and the women. All right. Because you see that the men have their hair long. All right. Men have their hair long, so they would do this to differentiate between man and woman. But you can clearly see this is a dark-skinned people. These are the original inhabitants of the island of Crete, the Minoan civilization. Right now, when you have the contemporary images, this is how they depict them. Okay, this is a lie of the devil. You can see here again. Okay, if this will come up, dark-skinned people. Okay, 2 women on the side here and a man riding a bull. These are the Minoans, the original inhabitants of the Greek island of Crete. You see? Now, like I mentioned earlier, these are the original Europeans, but they were pushed out. Okay, notice this. Right, they were pushed out, but let me show you something real quick. Okay, because the Samoans, Let me just do this real quick, just to make this point, right? Okay, let me get up traditional. Cause yeah, man, look, Esau, he's pushed massive deception throughout the earth. Okay, these are the people that were originally on the island of Crete. These are the original Europeans, but they were pushed out by the Edomite. You see this? These are the same people. All right. You go back, and then they have the same culture. The Samoans, the Tongans, the Pacific Islanders of today. All right. These are the Minoans, the ancient Etruscans. Okay, this is who they descend from. All right. Then again, you have the Etruscans, the original dark-skinned Japhetic people of Europe. See this? The first Romans were black people called the Etruscans. You see? So the truth is out. Esau went and he appropriated people's culture. And we'll read it in a second. See that? This is how the people Etruscan, 400 to 300 BC. The original inhabitants of Europe. Let's get this. Let me go up. So this is Etruscan from the Britannica. Etruscan, member of an ancient people of Etruria, Italy, between the Tiber and Arno rivers west and south of the Apennines, whose urban civilization reached its height in the 6th century BCE. Many features of Etruscan culture were adopted by the Romans. You see that? Many features of Etruscan culture were adopted, which really means what? That they stole their culture and appropriated it unto themselves. The gods that the Etruscans had were the same gods that the Greeks and the Romans revered. Okay? They took the aqueducts from the Etruscans. They took the armor from the Etruscans. They took their system of government from the Etruscans. And it's telling you plainly here, they're successors to the power in the peninsula. Okay? So this is history here. And this is what but you let the colonizer tell it, they'll tell you that they've always been in Europe. But no, the truth of the matter is that they went in and they conquered and they took the land and they removed the landmarks. And what do the scriptures say about removing landmarks, right? It says Job 24 and verse 1. Why, seeing times are not hidden from the Almighty, do they that know him not see his ways, not see his days? Slakia. Some remove the landmarks. They violently take away flocks. And who's responsible for that? Who went in and removed the landmarks? All right. Removed the original habitation of the people and violently took away their land, took away their flocks, took away their heritage, and so on and so forth, and feed thereof. Verse 3, they drive away the ass of the fatherless. They take the widow's ox for a pledge. They turn the needy out of the way. The poor of the earth hide themselves together. Behold, as wild asses in the desert, go they forth to their work, rising betimes for a prey. The wilderness yieldeth food for them and for their children. So this is what the Edomite has done. Okay, they have removed the landmarks from around the original people of the earth. This is why you have people in the land of Israel today that are Cajuns of Call, as the elder Malcolm says, calling themselves the original Israelites when they're not the people. Clearly, they're not the people. Historical evidence proves that they're not the people, but you let them tell it. They are the chosen people of the Lord. All right, and I'll bring this out as well in Job 20 and 27, because there's a great awakening that's happening to the lies that the Edomites have pushed throughout the planet Earth. Okay, there's a great awakening. People are calling them out for their hypocrisy. And this was prophesied in Job 20 and 27. It says, the heavens shall reveal his iniquity. So the Most High, okay, this is happening really through the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. The iniquity of the so-called white man is being revealed. His lies are being exposed. He's being called out for the devil that he is, okay, which devil just means deceiver. And this man has deceived the whole entire earth, right? Calling himself things that he is not. And that goes back to what? Him being a fugitive and a vagabond. Because going back to the very beginning, Cain, okay, which Esau, which the so-called white people descend from, Esau was nothing more than a reincarnation of the same spirit of Cain after the flood. And Cain said what? Or the Most High told Cain what? That you shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. A fugitive is what? Somebody that's running from justice. Somebody that has committed crimes and they're wanted. A vagabond is someone that doesn't have a home. They just wander from place to place. Now, a fugitive, what does a fugitive do? If they're running from justice, they have to hide their identity. You see? And being a vagabond means you just go from place to place. You're just wandering, right? So Esau, being the fugitive and the vagabond that he is, he's taken other people's identity and he's hidden his own identity, which is that of Esau Edom, that of the Edomites. And he's gone all around the earth wandering, okay, taking lands, once again, removing the landmarks and calling himself by those names to hide himself. This is what has been perpetrated throughout the whole planet Earth. And we're in a time now where knowledge has greatly increased and the truth is being made known. Another one. Again, because with the conquest of Julius Caesar, they went out and conquered Europe. Who were they conquering? They were conquering people that look like this. Okay, they were conquering indigenous dark-skinned people. That's who they were conquering, the Romans. Okay, because Isaac gave Esau the blessing of what? The sword. He said, by the sword shalt thou live, and thou shalt have the fatness of the earth. So it was all prophecy that Esau went out and he conquered the nations as he did. But when they show you in movies, you know what I'm saying? Like they'll show you movies of the Romans. They'll go out, they'll conquer. They'll show it like they were fighting other so-called white people. Okay, which that was not the case. They were fighting people that look like this. All right. So when they show you the Vikings and they show you the original Europeans, when you know the conquest of Caesar, that's the imagery that they give you in these movies and these TV shows are historically inaccurate. Now, this is the tribe from what is resided in what is now today Western Britain, okay, Western England, right? And they were called the Silures, one of the tribes that Julius Caesar conquered when he went into Britain on that campaign. The Silures were a tribe or tribal confederation that occupied what is now Eastern Wales. The Roman historian and senator Tacitus wrote of the Silures tribe. He described them as having curly hair and dark skin. As such, he believed that they had crossed over from Spain into Wales. You see that? So Tacitus, right, he described the Silures of England as having what? Curly hair and dark skin. What is this? Okay. Curly hair and dark skin. These are the original Scots, the Picts, the English, or as they called the Britons. This is how the original people of Europe look. And this is a Roman historian that is documenting this. And he said what? He believed that they crossed over from Spain into Wales. So going back to the map, the original inhabitants of Europe, okay, all up in here, Spain, Portugal, France, you know, even in Italy. I showed you earlier the Etruscans, they were in Italy, then Rome rose up and took them over. So the fact that he said, well, they must have come from mainland Europe, because why? Mainland Europe was dark and swarthy. Okay, now we can get into that definition of swarthy, right? Swarthy, dark skin. Simple definition. Swarthy means a dark skinned person. So the original inhabitants of Europe were swarthy. And we'll read on. They had crossed over from Spain into Wales. The description is echoed by Jordanes in his Origins and Deeds of the Goths. Okay, which the Goths, they were another dark-skinned people that rose up and sacked Rome. Okay, which caused Rome to fall. Where he says the Silurs have swarthy features, you see, and are usually born with curly black hair. They are like the Gauls or the Spaniards. You see that? So the people of Spain and Gaul, okay, which Gaul is pretty much modern day France, Luxembourg, Belgium, that area, which is not just there. It was the whole of Europe that was swarthy. And we got the definition, dark skin. You see? Dark skin. And the elder Malcolm brings it out that now they won't even use the word swarthy to refer to ancient Europeans. Now they'll just use the term black, because black can be used for anything that, depending on the connotation. Black can be used to describe different things. Black can be used to describe a person's mental state. It can be used to describe if a person is dirty physically. It can be described as a person's attitude, right? But swarthy is very specific. A swarthy deals with the color of the skin. And this is really why in history they get away from using the term swarthy, because it exposes too much. And brothers have done countless lessons going into the topic of during the Dark Ages when, so-called Negroes ruled. All right, they were swarthy. All right. It wasn't until the Renaissance, which is the rebirth of ancient Rome, the so-called white people came into the picture. But before that, Europe was swarthy. All right. The so-called white people, they were the peasants. You see, the Latin word silurus comes from the common Celtic root, okay, which the Celts were dark-skinned, swarthy as well. Silo, meaning seed of offspring. Therefore, the name silurus might mean offspring of kin. Okay, which a lot of the tribes that were in ancient England and mainland Europe, they descended from the same people, which was Japhet. Okay, those were the descendants of Japhet. All right, the same thing with the ancient Greeks. Okay, the sons of Javan. You know what I'm saying? Dark skin, swarthy people. Okay, so now going back to Denzel, you see, so history has been taken over by the devil. Okay, the devil has given you his narrative of what history is, and he is not giving you the truth. So now that the information is available, we know what the truth is now. Okay, we're not in darkness like the rest of these people. This is why, and it really don't matter. Okay, people can argue about trivial stuff like this all day long, but the truth is what it is. Okay, you can look at the ancient coins and see that Hannibal, one of the greatest military generals in history, was a so-called black man. Okay, and this is what they don't want to get into. This is why they tell you that the ancient Egyptians were mixed race, or they were white. Well, no, they weren't. They were dark-skinned people. All right, but this all goes to forward the philosophy of Edomite or so-called white supremacy. Okay, because in order for you to be supreme, you have to push the narrative that every other nationality of people, especially the true Israelites, were always beneath you, that you were always the superior. Okay, this is what white supremacy goes into. It's an ideology, it's a mindset, it's a distortion of true history. Okay, and this is what these devils have done. All right. So, hopefully this lesson was edifying through the Rakah Kedash. In closing, call halal, Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai Ba'ashim Rakah Kedash. And until next time, Shalom to the elect.